Welcome, dear friends. Here we are for another study of the Spiritist magazine. Every Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we come together to study one of the articles from one of the issues of the magazine. Today, we welcome everybody to go to our app, to visit spiritistmagazine.org and download the PDF version of the magazine for issue 63. Today we'll talk about peace. The title of the article by Emmanuel is Let Us Pacify. And as always, dear friend, if you're watching this live or on demand, please leave your message to us. Make sure that you like, subscribe, follow, so others can also benefit from the message. And I normally, for those who are watching the video and are just listening to the content, I share my screen with everybody because I download the PDF version to my computer so we can read and analyze line by line how these teachings may benefit you and I in our daily lives. So we're just going through. This is the cover of issue 63 of the magazine and talk about the science of life after death. And then if you go by towards the end of the magazine, it's page 30 out of 50. So towards the middle to towards the end, there's an article titled Let Us Pacify. So if you're watching this, you're seeing me scroll through the thumbnails of each page. Very easy to use, very useful to you and I. Now I'm going to hide that sidebar. And this message is by the Spirit, Emmanuel. Make it larger so that we can all read. And Emmanuel, and this message starts with a Bible quote from Matthew chapter 5, verses 9, which we know that this is the Sermon of the Mount. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. So, dear friends, in my daily life, am I a peacemaker? Question number one. So the title is Let Us Pacify. In a world of trials and expiations, where we are all undergoing this planetary transition to a planet of regeneration, study more about the planetary transition in the Gospel according to Spiritism, chapter 3. You and I need to be fully aware, immersed in the physical body and observing what's going on around us without getting into despair. That peace starts within us. If we want to see peace around the world, we have to ask ourselves, what am I doing in my daily life that allows me to be peaceful? Because the society is a sum of us. There are forces trying to bring us into war, not just a physical war like in Ukraine, right? Just a physical attack from one country into another country. But there are wars brewing inside of ourselves, inside communities, inside families that might not be tangible, but are certainly happen. Wars between the physical and the spiritual realm for those who are still in conflict. So peace needs to be at the touchstone. Everything starts from love. We usually know that because God is love, God is good, but then the manifestation of lack of peace comes from the spirits incarnated on the earth, interacting with one another, interacting with those who are in the spiritual realm. So how pacified are you? And that is very important. It's much easier to create conflict than it is to create peace. But not impossible, because Jesus did it. So if Jesus did it, if the spirits are telling us that we can do it, we can do it. So Emmanuel tells you and I, there is no point in prolonging the nervous war. Conflict, make it a little, will await you in every corner because peace is the foundation of God's law. So we start with peace. If we follow God's laws, the divine laws, part 3 of the Spirit's book, we will find a state of peace. But conflict will be everywhere. That's when your choice, your relative free will, where you can choose what to say, choose what not to say. You can choose to provoke or not to provoke. You can choose to share the good news and not share fake news. So the conflict is everywhere. But peace is the foundation of God's law. Watch the catastrophes that pass. Yes, catastrophes occur, man-made and natural disasters, right? A war, just like the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, is a catastrophe because millions of spirits are interacting with one another in both realms. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people may have lost their lives. There are catastrophes that we create as human beings. But then there are catastrophes that are natural disasters. In the US, hurricanes. In other places, earthquakes. In another location, a volcanic eruption. So there are, wildfires. These are happening all around us, but they pass. And sometimes it's the law of destruction that it is at hand. When there's a wildfire and we have loss of life, loss of human life, loss of plant life, loss of animal life, and then after the fire, we go and rebuild, so do the plants and so do the animals. So that's the law of destruction right there. But they pass. Even the hurricanes come, pass, destroy, and go on. And then we stay and we renovate ourselves through service, right? We need to be in contact with the evil to know the value of good. Not that we are not condoning evil. We're just saying sometimes God allows us to go through things so we can appreciate what good is. The same way when we have a health crisis, we appreciate health. Time and again, Emmanuel continues, human beings make themselves the wolf of humanity, destroying the terrestrial countryside. That's when we just say, let's sell the lands, let's sell the public lands and the parks, right? In the US, we have a beautiful national park system that is for all to enjoy this beautiful nature in harmony with each other. We just destroy it. We just say, oh, there's lumber, there is minerals. Of course, we want progress, but we want moderation. But God, so human beings are the wolf, right? Destruction. We go for it. Because that's what we as a society value, destruction. We don't value, let's look at this culturally. We are looking at people who have success, who go, who attack, who take, to make money, to be what we value. Aggressiveness, right? Assertiveness. But then those who are meek don't get as elevated, even when we're growing up. Those who are meek, which is, no, fight back, bully, blah, blah. Like, no, we have to value peace inside of ourselves, choosing peace. God, in silence, determines that the grass covers the soil again, placing the flower in the grass and forming the fruit in the body of the flower itself. So God has created mechanism for restoration, renewal of resources. Even when you and I participate in a society of aggressiveness, go and take it. There is a mechanism for restoring a renewal, right? The law of destruction. Volcanoes ruin vast regions, but God restores the thorn landscapes. So yes, there is destruction. That's why we use what, friends? Science. The blessings of science on this planet. We use science to predict earthquakes, to have systems. That's why we fund science. We don't defund science. We fund science, like NOAA in the US, who predicts hurricanes, seaquakes, right? Sweep cities, but God showed them another place and they emerge more beautifully. So we fund those who have the knowledge acquired throughout training and experience to predict, so we can warn the humans so they can go to safety. But after it passes, we return and then we rebuild. Earthquakes bring calamities here and there, but God readjusts the face of the globe. There's a book by Divaldo Franco named, vamos lá falando de Miranda Fru, Divaldo Franco, named Planetary Transition. And the one that is behind me, I was looking, is in the world, on the way to the world of regeneration. They're both in English already. In the book Planetary Transition, the spirits bring to us, through Divaldo Franco, the earthquake that happened in Indonesia, 2004. We all watched it. By that time, we had 24-hour news cycles. We watched it happen. There was an earthquake that caused a tsunami. 250,000 lives, 250,000 give or take lives were spirits discarnated that day. And then Manuel Filomeno shows the spiritual rescue, the behind the scenes, explaining why those folks were discarnating as a collective. There's a reason why there's collective discarnations. Teaser, you need to read the book. There's also questions and answers in the Spirit's book about collective discarnations. And then God readjusts the face. If you go back to that region already somewhat has restored itself. So there was a reason why those calamities occurred, why those folks had to discarnate together, and the scene in the spiritual realm, the beautiful rescues from all over the globe, from many different colonies, the planning of reincarnation of superior spirits from other orbs into the region to renew ourselves, right? We need people from other orbs that are more elevated than us to return and show us the way, just like Jesus came from the higher spheres to incarnate on the earth to show us the way. But then those spirits bring with them another way that you and I, because we are so immersed on the physical in our experiences in reincarnating on the earth, that we may not see a way out through goodness, but goodness reigns everywhere. Strange diseases devastate entire populations, right? We just had a few years ago a COVID pandemic in the US alone. We lost 1.2 million lives. It's not the entire population, because we have over 300 million folks incarnated in the US, but it's a lot of people, and affects the family members who were left behind, the children who were left without their parents, their loved ones, the sons and daughters of older ones, the fathers and mothers who lost their children. So millions of people were affected by COVID. Those who, like most of us, had COVID and recuperated also were affected in some way. But God inspires the head of selfless scientists and liquidate epidemics. That's what happened. Through decades of science, we developed the mRNA vaccine for COVID. And the vaccine for COVID was given and saved millions of lives, because it prevented you from getting severe disease and being hospitalized, right? So science needs to continue, and we have to think. God is inspiring the physicians, and if we are blessed to have physicians and scientists, we need to continue to support them. And that's why I tell you, if you have a problem in the physical, you need to go, and I say this to myself, need to go to a physical doctor. If you're blessed with health insurance, you go and do your exams, your preventative measures, you take your medicine, you do the lifestyle modifications. But God is constantly inspiring selfless scientists to progress with science. And sometimes those scientists are receiving inspiration from higher realms. Sometimes they come from there to show us the way, and breakthroughs come so that more lives can be saved through the measure. So there's no conspiracy to just make money. We are here to help one another, and that's what scientists do. From time to time, storms shake wide swaths of the earth, but God, by the forces of nature, rebalances everything. So everything is rebalanced. In our lives, sometimes calamities will come. It may not be in these big inspired forms, as we're saying, right? We may never experience a hurricane, a volcano eruption, an earthquake. But then our own calamities, which are smaller in nature because we are one system individual living with other individuals inside a community, inside a county, a city, a state, in my case, the state of Virginia in the United States, my calamities will cause me to move forward. Sometimes God imposes difficulties and struggles. And that's one of the things that perplexes most when they listen. And we're talking on our Sunday meetings, and we talked about this. Nobody wants to say, my child is suffering. Nobody's promoting suffering for the sake of suffering. But if we are afflicted with something as part of this life on the earth, we have to realize we are reaping today what we sowed in the past. Nobody wants their family member to do the one who did anything bad against one another, but we know. We just have to look back a few generations. We've done a lot of damage to one another, and people still today living just for the senses, hurt one another on a daily basis. So in future lives, here on earth and elsewhere, we will be reaping what we sowed. So let's sow peace so that you can reap peace, so you can harvest peace. And there are other circumstances. These are not expiations, but these are tests. And that's the minority. Most of us are undergoing tribulations due to the things we did in the past that today we have to go through. We are expiating wrongs. We are being tested. And then one day we will repair the damage we did to one another. And it's reciprocal. There's nobody on the earth who is a victim. We, at some point in our previous lives, have done things that today we are undergoing to. And of course, that is multiplied by the grace of God. We are only getting a sliver of what we need to purify our paraspiritual body so that we can progress. God is saying, honey, stop worrying about what is superfluous. Stop worrying about all this stuff. Stop worrying about fashion and clothing and the way you look. Go do service to others. Go use your time to gain knowledge, to help, to volunteer. The number of stamps in my passport is not going to matter when I go to the spiritual realm. Unless every time I did, it was a mission of service to others. Of course, the folks who go to mission critical elsewhere, that's important to the folks of Fraternity Without Borders. Not as many passports that they have when they go to Africa to help, or when they go to countries other than Brazil to help. Then you have service, merit. So, but peace begins inside of us, knowing that whatever I am undergoing today, whatever my family members are going through today, it shall pass. Do not give into pessimism under any circumstances. So let's look at everything that is happening around us. Let's know what's going on. But we cannot be contaminated with pessimism, think that's the end. Because this is a test for us. Can we persevere in being the good? Can we persevere in being the brain of the world, as we know from on the book On the Way to the Light by Emmanuel? Or are we going to have to reevaluate our position? Can we be resilient that if something is lacking in my life, there's a reason to be, if I have a health issue, so on and so forth. So there's a lot of things that we have to work on. But no pessimism, because life is precious. Experience, there are millions and millions of spirits just waiting to reincarnate on the earth. And they're not going to have an opportunity, all of them, because people are having less children. So there'll be less opportunity for reincarnation. So they're going to be being reincarnating elsewhere. That's the logic. God will never leave us without the experience we need in the physical body. You might be here, might be elsewhere. So let's pacify. Everything can be now affliction and convulsion before you. However, calm down life around you as much as you can, because peace will come from the hands of God. So we need to trust. We need to study. We need to meditate. We need to reflect on these teachings. We have to read these messages over and over again in order to sink into the fibers of our souls. So when we arrive in the spiritual realm, it's embedded in our memory, because we don't have necessarily direct, immediate access to books. So we have to study, we have to learn, we have to. Then one step, action. Action. You go help those people who need in your area, inside of your house, your neighbors, in the shelters, in the animal shelters, in the fire department, in the homeless camp, whatever the need presents to you, and God will show once we are ready to work. God shows the worker the work to do. Where did this message comes from? This message comes from the Book of Hope by the Spirit Emmanuel through Chico Xavier, chapter 79. This book was translated by Kardec Radio's team, and Vanessa Saloni has a beautiful program at Kardec Radio called Morning Prayer, where she comes every morning and prays, read a message and prays. And you can find those playlists on the Kardec Radio website. Excuse me, the Kardec Radio YouTube. But if you go to Kardec Radio website, there's a link to the YouTube as well. Dear friends, leave your comments, leave your messages. Contact us at spiritistmagazine@gmail.com. You can also visit spiritistmagazine.org. There's a contact form in the website, or you can contact the editor-in-chief. Let us pacify today and always. Dear friends, I hope that I can return another week with another study of the Spiritist Magazine. Until then, stay well, stay safe, and God willing, we'll meet soon. Bye-bye.